So the first thing we've got to do is generate the circle. So using the equation area equals pi times r squared, we can draw our two circles, one inside the other, to represent the hours and the minutes track. We're then going to have a train driving on those tracks, sort of following the line around, and then going to stations which are going to represent the numbers. How that's going to work yet, I'm not sure. So whether the train will just go all the way around until it reaches a number, or it will go really slowly per tick per second. I think it would look better if it went round and then on the minute or hour it stopped, lit up the station, and then the station stays lit. But we'll try both. Once we've got the two circles, we've got a lot of space to play with inside the circle. So what I was thinking was some kind of city. And I was going to sort of pick out a square. That's a circle. I was going to pick out a square inside and sort of come up with some way of generating a little random city inside, be it with houses or roads as well. So you could have little houses going along, and then we could have like a road going through. And then we could have individual pixels representing cars and maybe even people. What I'd really like would be some people running around and maybe actually getting on the train, but we'll start with the easy stuff first. Now mocked up what I think the train's going to look like in Excel. So you've got the inner and outer track being the purple. Not sure whether we use that colour for the actual LED, but that's the challenge, is we've only got RGB colours to work with, and obviously we want it to light up, so we can't really use black unless we colour the whole matrix, which uses a lot of power. So purple for track, red for the station, so you can see they're kind of evenly distributed round, and I've got 12 notches. I've gone for sort of 3x1 trains, so the front locomotive will be a different colour, so 1x3, and then you have however many carriages on the back. So I'm very excited to try and actually make this in Python. The way we're going to do it is using a coordinate system. So LED matrix, you can see with the Excel numbers just about that it's we've got 64 by 64 pixels to work with. With programming, you usually start from 0 and go up. So we've got 0 to 63 as our X and Y coordinates. So we have to write some software which is going to tell the LED matrix which coordinates to light up every second, basically. So we have to do a lot of calculations within that second. And that's going to be the main challenge, is making sure that this still looks good as it refreshes at a fairly regular rate on average. So yeah, we'll see. We've also got to interface with the system time. So this is going to be accurate. It's going to show the real time. And we can use real seconds as our tick, which can sort of help us cheat a little bit, because everything will be in time with real time. And then later, I was thinking we start tapping into emails. So every time you get an email, maybe the track that could come across the screen, across the side, that could deliver a package maybe onto another train. That's going to be quite tricky, because the circles are quite easy because you just have a list full of circle coordinates. Whereas if you wanted something a bit different, you're going to have to either manually do it, which is boring, or you have to come up with some algorithm. So I want to avoid doing anything manually. I want to try and do everything as automatically as possible, because eventually I want some randomly generated stuff to happen. And I want this to be expandable, so if I wanted more LED matrices, I could expand it. So that's the plan. I'm going to try and program it. So here is my code in horrible Python IDE, because this isn't actually where I've been programming it. I've been programming it directly onto the Raspberry Pi because I like things being easy, but I have cloned it into a GitHub account. So basically what I've tried to do is make a class for this, so that I can use this for other projects maybe, and also so that it's expandable and easy to use. So I've made a main class called train clock, and that's pulling from another file called samplebase, which is basically a file provided by the library I use for the RGB matrix, and that just covers all of the options on all of the setup for the actual matrix. So basically we've got our initiate, and that just initiates the program itself. I've got track circle, so this function will generate the circle for the track, and it will generate a number of points. Render track, this basically paints all the pixels on a given track. So in reality, all you have to do is put a list inside this and it will just paint that list. Render station, again, similar. So this plots the stations round the circle. So it's a little bit not quite right. They're not quite even. Again, this is something I need to work out. The problem is at the moment, because I'm working with 64 by 64 dots, but I'm not actually calculating points on those exact spaces. So there's some dots that are in between, and I'm doing surrounding, and it works for now. It looks okay. Draw screen. So this will update the LED matrix with the new screen to show. So all the pixels that we've drawn in the last few functions, they'll suddenly actually turn on. Render train, similar. So this will create the train in a certain position, and the way it works is you give it a track, and you give it a length of the train. So it always has a locomotive on the front, and then it has a number of train carriages, cars on the back that you specify, and that will then render on the first point of the track, and then you can start iterating using a tick. So we can use seconds, or you can use hours, how far along it is along that track. That's the first plan. Okay, so we've pressed play, and we've got an emulator library which is pretending to be our LED matrix so that I can show it up on the screen. So as you can see, we have our two concentric circles, and we have our extremely rough stations. So yeah, it's quite obvious these stations aren't very evenly displaced. The problem is the LED matrix, because it's an even number, 64 by 64, it's got 2 pixels. There's no middle line, which makes things very difficult to sort of work out and make even, because we can't divide it into very clear quarters. Well, at least I haven't worked out how to do it. There's probably a good way of doing it. So for now, everything's going to be a little bit rough. The train is currently started at the first station, and then what we'll do next is basically iterate that train travelling along the track every second. So let's do that next. Okay, so lo and behold, I've now put in a datetime function. So when we start it up, the train now ticks over at a second. This is based on system time. I've just used the simple Python datetime method. But it's quite cool to see the train moving very, very slowly. Obviously, this isn't... And it also goes back. So the other problem is that obviously seconds only go up to 60. So it's only going to travel 60 points along a circle. So there's a bit more jiggery of the code to make sure it actually maps around the whole track. This is where the fun begins. Ta-da! So I've been working a little bit, and I've now got the tick working. I've got the 2 trains running. It's quite fast. I'm just trying to figure out how to control the tick levels for 2 different trains so that they go at different speeds. This is turning out to be a bit of a challenge. As you may notice, the light level has changed. It's now nighttime. So this might be the end of this video, and I will build upon it on the next one. Thank you for watching. Okay, so it's hard to see, but I've SSH'd into my Raspberry Pi. So secure shell, I've remotely accessed it. I'm going to activate the program which I've written, and then I'll video the output so you can see what it looks like so far.